Okay, this is a video about Mrsa infections. There's the original infection on the top of my head, the injury that started it. You can see around the edges where it's spreading there, reddish first and then a yellowish fluid that came out, and it did spread all over my head and down my neck. I went to doctors, as you'll hear later, got all kinds of prescriptions of topical and internal antibiotics. Nothing worked. It was a MRSA type infection, and it started to make me really sick. I stopped eating. I was told to go to the hospital. There it is. This is before any treatment. You see those pinkish reddish blotches? Those are infection sites. Okay, I treated it right there the first time with the vinegar, the apple cider vinegar. And you can see almost immediately the wound started to seal up and blister over. That was just with apple cider vinegar. And you'll see in the coming pictures the transformation of the treatment I used. That's the treatment. It's Indian clay mixed with apple cider vinegar. Looks crazy. I had to shave my head totally and apply this. And I did it 2 times a day. And there's a picture after the first application. There I am again. I don't know, the picture didn't catch it fast enough, but there's another one. You can see that it's sealing up and it's healing. These pictures going to go by fast. There it is. That infection's all sealed up almost. There it is again. This was over a period of about 2 weeks. I took these pictures and did the treatment. There it is again. Now it's getting really clean. There's a couple blotches there where the infection had started and stopped. The big infection is still there. I'm still treating it, but it is diminishing, believe it or not. There it is with the clay again. And clay on the head again, apple cider vinegar. 2 weeks, 2 times a day. Messy stuff, but it works. You notice that there's no more open infections anymore. There's no more spreading of it. It's gone subcutaneous. The infection has, and that's where the treatments that I'll mention later internally you need to take too. See the original scab is almost shrinking there so much it's sealed totally. It just continues and continues, but you have to stay with it. You cannot stop doing this, or else the infection will return. There's the back of the head when it was all infected. It's almost gone. Anyway, uh, you can see from the pictures the improvement that's gradually occurring, and that's why I put these pictures in. This was an infection behind the ear that I missed, that I was treating towards the end. You can see there's a little blotch there that I had to catch because it was going to start spreading. But you have to be on top of this. It's a cutaneous infection, and it's spread over the skin. There's my head. It's cleaning up. Um, you can see that. Anyway, it works. It's all gone now. This is a video I made on how to cure MRSA or antibiotic resistant infection. These infections are commonly known by the acronym MRSA and are labeled often superbugs because they're very hard to control. And yet, the bacteria that causes this is generally found in lots of environments and exists without usually negative effects. MRSA, when it is colonized in your skin, is easily spreadable to other places, as I found in an infection that I had. And it is almost impossible to treat with a lot of current treatments. It's commonly known to be resistant to most antibiotics, and sometimes intravenous antibiotics will work. And it's commonly spread in hospital settings with already immune compromised patients. And the contractability by anybody, including healthy people, which I considered myself to be, is possible as well. And once started, it's extremely infectious, as I found, and it can be spread not only on your skin and body, but it can go to other humans and even your pets. And the most common source of this infection is an entry point in the skin, and if left unchecked, it can spread first throughout your skin and then eventually into your internal organs, creating sepsis and even death. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about my infection. What happened to me was I had an injury on the back of my head, which is an open cut and bruise, and I applied antibiotics originally, the type you buy in a drugstore or Walmart or whatever, and expected it to be all okay. And up until this point, up until this injury that I had, this occurred, I never had any problem with that. I always was careful if I got, especially on a deep wound, to apply those antibiotics, surface antibiotics, and never had a bad infection from it. So I was expecting everything to be okay. However, the infection began spreading on the back of my head. At first, I didn't notice it because it was on the back of my head, but then I started to feel it. I got cellulitis on the back of my neck, and I started having these open boils or wounds all over one side of my head. So I sought medical care, and it was first diagnosed as a spider bite. However, I was given prescribed antibiotics along with a prescription surface antibiotic, which is kind of what would have been done even if it was a normally treatable infection. I received clindamycin at first and told to come back in a day or two. I did it 2 days, did nothing, and then I got Bactrim, which was I think it was a sulfa-based, I'm not sure, and there was no result with that. Meanwhile, the infection's spreading all over my head with open boils and cellulitis spreading. So at that point, spider bite was ruled out, and it was probably consumed to be a Mrsa. And at the same time, I was starting to get internally affected. I had stopped eating, and I had extreme fatigue, and I was only to stay awake about 4 hours a day. And the third time after that last antibiotic didn't work, I was given another prescription, but told to go to a hospital, go to an emergency room, get checked in, and most probably for intravenous antibiotics. And then I went home, thought about it, looked on the internet and outcomes and things what happen to people, especially in hospitals, especially the fact that it spread around in hospitals. And I didn't feel too comfortable with that. And so I looked other places. So I go on the internet, and with the help and advice of my son, who's an internet whiz, looked up all kinds of sources on YouTube and off YouTube as well. There's a lot of them that are available throughout the internet of treatments for this type of an infection. And I found it interesting. There was particularly a lot from other countries, apparently, because, there's a lot of treatments in other countries, particularly third world type countries, that don't have the access to a lot of antibiotics, and they've used traditional cures for years for serious infections, which work quite well. So anyway, went on there and found a whole bunch of them, and I started to try them. But my infection was pretty serious, and it spread, and like I said, it was internal. And I tried them, and there's a few of them were tea tree oil, olive oil mixed with turmeric paste, oregano oil, iodine, and a bunch of other ones. And while they may have worked, I didn't have a lot of time because the infection, like I said, was affecting me, and I didn't see any results. I'd apply one and wait maybe a day and look, and kind of like with the antibiotics, and see no result. And I said, okay, move on to the next one. And I went through a bunch of them, and after a while, I didn't have time to wait. I didn't see any improvements, and I go sometimes to 2 of them, but no real results with these. Okay, there's a picture of some Manuka honey. Was one very expensive. Just did not work. And oregano oil, tea tree oil, all those things. It just didn't work fast. But I spent a lot of money buying those things and desperately trying them. Okay, this is going to blow your mind now. What worked? It seemed like the cheapest possible thing, which is right in front of you, worked. And that was um, a combination of apple cider vinegar. I used organic vinegar and applied it with a makeup brush. And then I followed it up with a mixture of organic cider vinegar and Indian healing clay. um, if you have questions about this being real or not, you could go on the internet and look, and there's been significant medical studies that have shown the strong antibiotic properties of apple cider vinegar. And the Indian healing clay, it's bentonite clay actually, and it's been used by women and anybody who has facial problems like acne and stuff like that for removing blemishes in the skin. In fact, you can buy it. It's real easy to find. You can buy it in a drugstore. I bought it at a local CVS drugstore. And I don't know if you've ever remember those old movies where women would come out with mud on their face when they were in the morning getting ready, and that was what they were doing, applying clay on their face for cleaning up blemishes. But it also works, I believe, to draw out toxins in the subdermal layers of the skin. So anyway, the first thing I did was apply the organic cider vinegar with a brush, and it was amazing. Within 4 to 5 hours, all the open boils and wounds that were spreading over the side of my head and down the back of my neck sealed up. You know, like when a wound starts to heal, it starts to scab over. And so I repeated this process religiously. I did the Indian healing clay mixed with vinegar twice a day. You mix it up into a paste and apply it to the infected area. And when it's applied, you leave it on there for at least 20 or 30 minutes. Now, I've looked on the internet, and in the beginning I was leaving it on a long time, and I don't know if there's any therapeutic benefit of that, but I don't think there's any real harm. But anyway, after doing that, I'd wash it off, and you have to be careful when you remove it because it's drying or dried, and you don't want to peel skin off. So you have to, like, with a hose, because you have to do this outside, because the clay will plug up your plumbing. You don't want it in a sink. You don't want to put it down a shower. You don't want to put it in a toilet because it'll turn to like cement in your pipes, and you'll have a hell of a mess in your plumbing. But anyway, you wash it off, and you're careful when you wash it off gradually. Don't try and force it off, because especially over the open wounds and stuff, it'll tear skin off if you get in a hurry to get it off. So you rinse it off, kind of refluidize it, make it liquid again, and gradually take it off, and then let your wound area dry. And then when it's dry, I repeatedly applied with the makeup brush the cider vinegar. And I would say somewhere between 3 and 5 days, the improvement was just remarkable. All the wounds were sealing up. Even some of the scabs that appeared initially were starting to heal over and disappear. The major big wound, that took a couple weeks of doing this, applying this. And it was real funny with my infection. There was a lot of pain, not when the infection occurred. In fact, I had little, and I read on the internet people have pain and stuff associated with this infection. I got it afterwards when it was healing and cleaned up, and I had to deal with that. But anyway, that's the story with that. This is a picture of the apple cider vinegar and the Aztec healing clay, which you can get at, like I said, any drugstore. Okay, so what you do I'm just showing you a picture of a cup that I poured the apple cider vinegar in, and when I applied it, I'd use a cosmetic brush and brush it all over where the wound is. And you don't have to be that sanitary because as long as you put the brush back in the apple cider vinegar, you're okay because it kind of kills all the bacteria. But I didn't say before or I mentioned it briefly that this infection is very infectious and can spread. So in other situations, like where you're touching who you're being around when you're openly infected, you got to be very careful. And your bed sheets and all that stuff, you got to change. But once you start applying this, within a couple of days, everything's going to seal up and you're not going to be oozing. So there's a picture of the paste, and you mix it up with the cider vinegar, and then I applied it to my wrist. And the next picture is a picture of the sink, just to remind you, don't put that stuff down the sink. Now, I after the wounds healed and were healing up or were healed up, and pretty much all looking almost normal, I found I had a lot of pain and irritation still left in my skin. So, but there was still some residual infection like cellulitis. And I found back up using some of these other things. I used the PRID drawing salve. I used witch hazel, has antibiotic properties. So does castor oil. And aloe vera was pretty relieving. I also used the Manuka honey, which did not work immediately to stop the infection, but it definitely felt a lot more soothing after the infection had been cleared, and also has an antibiotic property. Okay, now it's about the internals and how you internally deal with the MRSA infection. One of the first things you need to do, and it's the hardest thing, is to give up sugar foods completely, even fruit, everything. Cut it off. These bacterial infections are known to feed off of that intake of what you take in, and internally you don't want to have that in your body when this is going on. Turmeric. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. Everyone knows that. Raw garlic, of course, is an antibiotic. Everyone knows that. And eating raw garlic is the best. And then also garlic pills I took. Echinacea, that's your immune system. The Manuka honey. Now that was supposedly going to work on externally, but I didn't see much results. But I took it internally for the therapeutic effects internally. It does have an antibiotic residual effect when you eat it. And colloidal silver, yeah, I heard about that. I took it. Here's the other ingredient, though. You should look at fire cider. It has everything in it. It has the apple cider. It has garlic. It has all kinds of ingredients that are very therapeutic, and that I'd strongly recommend to take. It's called fire cider. And here's a picture of some of the stuff that I used. Okay, well, that's it for me. And if you guys, anybody suffering from this, has any questions, leave a question in the comments, and I'll answer it if I can. And good luck.